Hi everyone, this is Kenneth Wong, Senior Editor for DE. Recently, I moderated a webcast sponsored by Adaptive Corporation and Dassault Systems. The discussion revolved around EMI, or electromagnetic interference, in connected devices. Here is Wayne Tanner, COO of Adaptive.
Let's talk about late-stage failure. There are numerous examples of high-tech electronic products that have failed due to unforeseen problems with hardware, such as overheating, subpar performance due to accelerated product degradation, etc. A good example of this is looking at the electrical performance of designs without taking the thermal effects into consideration, which can cause a product to rapidly catch fire. We've seen this with numerous cell phones and battery examples or power adapters. Also, battery life, power networks, and signal integrity can diminish in the performance drastically over time if you don't look at how your product will function over the long term. Think your phone battery, for instance. Not all publicity is good publicity, and it can be hard or impossible for companies to recover.
Now here is Mathilde Hemon, Industry Solutions Experience Consultant from Dassault Systems.
The high-tech market is a volatile market. Consumers' expectations are evolving very rapidly. They're always looking for new features and form factors. Also, poor product experience, or even worse, an early product failure, can have catastrophic outcomes on the company's revenue and brand image, because consumers can easily turn to competition. Moreover, to answer the market thirst for innovation, OEMs have to engineer more and more complex products with an ever-increasing components density in ever thinner and lighter designs. The foldable phone you can see here is a good example. Imagine how complex it is to have the electronics going through the flexible parts and to have a phone still robust enough after 100,000 volts. Finally, the high-tech industry is characterized by short design cycles to compare to aerospace and automotive industries. Companies introduce dozens of new products per year and approximately one new version every year. There is a huge pressure to be first on the market. So what can actually help those high-tech companies face those challenges? Well, simulation is key because it avoids time-consuming and costly prototypes and also ensure product reliability and performances. But it also comes with its own challenges. High-tech companies often have many product lines with different product variants and in some cases engineer their own components. All of those need to be simulated and tested in all domains. So imagine the huge number of simulation that needs to be performed. How can we ensure the reliability of the product and avoid recalls?
For real-world examples and practical tips, we also heard from Michael Fogg, Senior Principal Engineer from Adaptive.
Obviously, one of the big concerns now is that everything is becoming interconnected. Your watch talks to your cell phone, which talks to your car, which talks to your security system, which talks to your computer, and so on and so forth. And really, as was mentioned earlier, things are getting smaller, more complex, and more integrated. And this is where you need to really have a series and a set of tools to give the ability to look at ways to make sure everything works the first time, or at least with fewer iterations and fewer prototypes and just less problems as you're going through your development cycle. I'll show a very simple example. In this case, it's a capacitive touch sensor. Usually you would think of this as a very straightforward. They're on your phones, they're in your car, they're everywhere. However, they're not quite as simple as they appear to be. And this is something which simulation could be very useful in determining how it's going to work. Some simple examples of where you can run into problems. Let's say that you've got a device which was originally designed for older people like me. Then you have a similar version which is done for small children who would have a much smaller hand. Well, the accuracy and the usefulness of the capacitive touch sensor may not be useful or very, very well designed for the smaller hands. Another possibility is getting into an area where you might have harsh environments where people may have gloves, or there may be other fluids or chemicals that could potentially get on the screen which could affect your response and your results. Therefore, being able to model and properly lay out what you want the sensor to do and optimizing your performance is key. As you can see here, you can also use a biometric model, which is part of the CST Studio Suite, that allows you to understand the interactions between the human body into the electrical fields, the circuit, and the thermal aspects of it.
During the live Q&A, Mike fields a question about simulating with a differential mode excitation.
That's kind of I wouldn't say a trick question. There are a couple different ways to look at it. If you're measuring an active device, when you change your resolution bandwidth, it's going to basically integrate over a small or narrow frequency band and give you the total power at that particular frequency. When doing product development, if you're looking at passive components, you would actually do a frequency sweep and measure each particular frequency. And the resolution bandwidth will help, but it just is in in test time and noise floor. But I've been able to do a lot of accuracy checks in the frequency domain and have seen that we can get very strong correlation between test data and simulator results through CST and through the lab that I used to run at my previous employer. Now, for broadband emissions, then it gets into a lot more complications because you have a dynamic noise source. It's going to vary in time. You need to average it over a particular frequency range, and you really have to make some compromises to be able to get the performance you need. And from my experience in dealing with EMI, though it is a broadband signal, you usually fail at a particular frequency. Like, for example, if you're using some of the broadband Ethernet types devices, they fail at the 28 gigahertz or the 56 gigahertz frequency. They don't fail at a large number of frequencies. They usually will fail at one frequency.
This is just a short summary of the full webcast. For the full webcast, please watch the archived episode. Thank you for watching. I'm Kenneth Wong for DE.